The conference room smelled of stale coffee and ambition the morning Tyler Brandt decided to publicly dismantle my life. I sat in the back corner, notepad open, pen poised out of habit more than necessity. Tyler stood at the head of the long table, laser pointer dancing across his slide deck like a conductor waving a baton at an orchestra only he could hear. "Digitize or die," he declared, voice booming with the confidence of someone who had never once filed a single federal compliance form in his career. 30 faces turned toward him, some nodding eagerly, others shifting uncomfortably. I felt the weight of that collective gaze when he zeroed in on me. "Look, if we spent less time clinging to dead trees and more time embracing tools like Dropbox, we wouldn't be drowning in inefficiency." His eyes locked on mine. "No offense, Aaron, but who under 40 even touches a printer anymore?" The room went quiet enough to hear the hum of the projector. My pen tapped once against the coffee-stained corner of my notepad. I didn't respond. I simply watched as he clicked to the next slide. Bold letters screaming, "Verilone Systems, paperless revolution." He grinned like he'd just invented efficiency itself, pacing in his sockless loafers, dropping words like synergy and operational hygiene as if they were profound revelations. Tyler was the latest in a line of disruptive executives Verilone hired every couple of years. Fresh from some Silicon Valley-adjacent startup, he talked endlessly about fasting for mental clarity and ordering oat milk at steakhouses to prove how forward-thinking he was. He'd been here 6 months and already rebranded half the departments. Now, he had his sights set on the archives, the heart of our federal grant compliance work. I had been the custodian of record retention for 19 years. Started when Verilone was little more than 2 folding tables, a federal grant, and a dream. I knew every drawer, every retention schedule, every clause in those thick binders that tracked matching funds, audits, and signatures. Those dead trees had kept us out of trouble during 3 separate government reviews. But to Tyler, they were clutter slowing down his vision of a sleek, cloud-based future. The official email arrived an hour later. My role was being sunset by end of quarter. A scanning firm in Mumbai would handle modernization. I had until Friday to box my office. The word decommission appeared twice, as if my life's work were an obsolete battleship. I printed the memo. 1 physical copy for my personal file. No one noticed when I requested 2 full days to inventory the archives myself. Facilities shrugged it off. The intern barely looked up from his phone when he muttered, "Sure, Aaron. Just leave your badge when you're done." That invisibility had always been my quiet strength. While executives chased trends and cycled through the building every few years, I watched. I learned where the real power hid, in the overlooked details, the audit trails no one bothered to verify, the locked cabinet labeled Verilone classified, do not shred. By Wednesday afternoon, the movers were already slapping red destroy stickers on boxes I'd spent years organizing. I packed methodically, treating each binder like a chapter in the company's hidden history. The ceramic owl my niece made in 3rd grade. The faded photo of my late husband and me from our 10th anniversary. Back when the company fit on 1 lease floor and I knew everyone's name in accounting. I paused only at the final drawer. A slim yellowed envelope with my handwriting. Retention clause, Fed Contract 18043A. I slid it into my tote bag. Tyler's team wouldn't miss what they'd never known existed. That evening, I drove an hour outside the city to my climate-controlled storage locker. The backup server blinked green, full redundancy. Time-stamped, indexed across multiple off-site mirrors. I left a simple note on my desk before logging out for the last time. Nothing deleted is ever truly gone. No one waved goodbye. They were too busy celebrating the paperless revolution with Tyler's latest LinkedIn post, smiling selfie next to shrink-wrapped boxes of my life's work. Hashtags praising innovation and dismissing the old school. I sat in my car, Engine idling. Watching the glass doors close behind me. For a moment, I wondered how long it would take them to realize they'd gone blind. Not paperless. The audit hit Verilone like a storm no one had seen coming. It started on a Tuesday morning, the kind that's supposed to feel calm after the weekend, but before Friday panic sets in. At 9:26 a.m., the front desk buzzed Tyler's line. A visitor waited downstairs, no badge from consulting partners, no wheeled laptop bag, just a slim folder and credentials from the office of Inspector General. Special Agent Diane Melrose walked in wearing soft-soled shoes and carrying the quiet authority of someone who didn't need theatrics. She asked for original versions of 3 specific federal contracts, supporting documentation, submission logs, payment schedules, and metadata confirming authenticity. Tyler didn't panic at first. He summoned the young analyst he'd put in charge of the post-paper transition and smiled that executive smile. "We digitized everything," he assured her. "Shouldn't be a problem." The analyst opened her laptop and pulled up the shared drive. She clicked, scrolled, clicked again. Her fingers slowed. The screen showed missing clauses on one contract, a submission date stamped weeks after the grant deadline on another, and an empty folder for the third. The air in the lobby shifted. Tyler's grin faltered. "There must be backups," he said, voice rising slightly. "We hired a scanning firm. This was all part of our streamlining." Agent Melrose remained calm. "Originals? Metadata logs? Chain of custody reports?" The analyst looked pale. "The vendor said that wasn't in our service tier. We were keeping costs lean." Tyler's jaw twitched. "Who handled retention before digitization?" The analyst hesitated. "Erin Cordell." "She's no longer with the company." Melrose's pen paused. "She was the listed custodian of record on at least 5 federal matching contracts, including these." "Were her indexes preserved?" "Destroyed," Tyler admitted quietly. The inspector closed her notebook. "I'll return with a formal records request. In the meantime, locate the originals or any audit trail confirming retention standards were upheld." Word spread fast through the building. The receptionist whispered just loud enough for Tyler to hear. "Wasn't Erin the one who wrote retention logs by hand?" Tyler stood frozen, finally understanding that his clean slate had erased proof instead. Across town, my phone rang while I was in the garden, gloves covered in cool soil, coaxing marigolds into the corner plot. The Washington, D.C. area code surprised me. "Miss Cordell, this is Special Agent Diane Melrose, Office of Inspector General. We understand you were the custodian of record retention at Verilone for 19 years. We're reviewing federal grant programs and have encountered inconsistencies. Would you speak with us about your former role?" I glanced at the storage shed where an unassuming gray case labeled "Holiday Decorations" held no tinsel, only encrypted drives and indexed binders. "I'm happy to speak," I replied evenly, "with my attorney present. And I have something you might want to see." The crates left my locker the next morning, each labeled E. Cordell Holdings, Asset Review, Tracked, Temperature Controlled, Chain of Custody Sealed. The crates arrived at Verilone through the side entrance, matte black and rolling on reinforced dollies. Agent Melrose led the delivery herself. The lobby had become theater for Tyler's paperless revolution, but this was procedure, clean, controlled, undeniable. Tyler tried to frame it as a scheduled review, calling a hurried meeting with legal and 2 junior finance managers who looked completely out of their depth. The air felt thick. Melrose opened the first crate without flourish and began laying out binders like cards of obligation. She opened one to the first contract. Page 1. Top right corner. My initials. EC0513-2017. Original retention stamp. Signed and notarized. "You destroyed the originals?" she asked Tyler. eyes never leaving the document. We engaged a digitization vendor to streamline protocols, he answered. Voice strained. We were advised to reduce redundancy. Yes. Cordell hadn't updated our protocol in years. Melrose turned the binder toward the table, revealing the retention clause I'd signed 6 years earlier. Originals must be retained unaltered for 5 years post-disbursement. Custodian of Record E. Cordell. A second signature from the then CFO remained attached with a sticky note, filed after compliance review. Do not discard. Tyler's voice cracked. I wasn't aware that clause had survived the transition. The clause is enforceable, Melrose said quietly. Failure to retain original documents for federally funded programs constitutes a breach. Your scanned copies were altered or incomplete. Liability exposure is substantial. She pulled more binders, laying out a paper trail of delivery slips, timestamps, and my handwritten notes that matched the digital discrepancies perfectly. One slip showed a document logged on June 1st, 2018. The digital version listed an earlier date with metadata altered last quarter. Tyler fumbled. There must have been miscommunication with the vendor. I delegated that process. To whom? Melrose asked. Silence. She closed the binder deliberately. Records indicate Miss Cordell raised concerns about document preservation before departure. She requested verification of her exit logs. Did anyone follow up? No one answered. Outside the glass conference room, staff, who once cheered Tyler's vision, now peeked from hallways. Watching the collapse, Melrose addressed the room. Review all compliance protocols within 48 hours. Further analysis of these originals will determine the scope of breach. Be grateful someone knew how to keep a promise. The paper Tyler had called dead weight now stood between the company and federal prosecution. Panic settled in silence that week, shallow breathing. Chairs scraping too fast. The general counsel stormed into the war room with my old risk memo. The one Tyler had replied LOL to before ordering destruction. You knew, she hissed. She flagged federal exposure. You laughed. Tyler tried to defend himself. She was just a record clerk. Overcautious. She was the custodian of record, the counsel snapped. And we let her walk out carrying half our legal shield because you chased hashtags. The internal audit lead spoke for the first time. Her initials appear on 93% of critical compliance documents over the last decade. Everything else is incomplete or unverifiable. The federal hearing room smelled of dry air and old binders, quiet professionals in navy blazers asking questions like scalpels. No gavels. No drama. Just precision. I sat in my charcoal gray blazer. Practical and non-distracting. Wedding band and the silver watch from our cleanest audit in 2016 on my wrist. The folder before me was thin but complete. The chairman confirmed my 19 years as custodian. My responsibility for physical and digital documentation of federally funded programs. My off-site backups. And the fact that no one had ever instructed me to destroy them or formally transferred my responsibilities. Each answer landed calmly. I described requesting 2 days to finalize inventories, emailing legal with risk summaries, maintaining chain of custody logs for every box, drive, and backup. Agent Melrose leaned forward. She displayed my cross-reference chart, a dense table aligning every federal contract with attachments, amendments, payments, and red-highlighted discrepancies from quarterly audits I'd flagged internally with no follow-up. The chairman adjusted his glasses. You were aware the digital system lacked critical components? Yes. That's why I retained originals. Why didn't you escalate further? I submitted 3 risk notices. I received no replies. Melrose asked about one particular asset that resolved multiple inconsistencies. That's why I made it, I said simply. The Justice Department representative spoke last. Why didn't you destroy the records when you left? Because deletion doesn't fix failure. It hides it. I was trained to preserve things. The panel conferred briefly. The chairman leaned forward. The agency formally acknowledges your contribution in preserving the integrity of the audit trail. Without your diligence, the scope of this investigation would have been severely compromised. Thank you. I nodded once and sat quietly as it concluded.
No tears. No smile.
But as I left, my reflection in the glass doors showed straight shoulders and steady eyes. They had erased me from the org chart, but today I was the only name that mattered. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, cream stock, Silver Department of Commerce seal, crisp commendation for exceptional diligence in preserving federal documentation and upholding public trust. I folded it neatly into a new binder labeled Post-Veralone Recognition. That binder had started empty. 2 days later, the compliance bulletin announced Tyler Brandt placed on administrative leave pending internal review. Federal fines loomed in 7 figures. The scanning vendor distanced itself. Tyler's LinkedIn profile vanished quietly from Veralone's HR page. I received a polite voicemail from the general counsel asking about a consulting conversation. I let the silence linger. They needed to feel the weight of what they'd dismissed. Later that week, while cleaning the garage, I found an old Veralone box, dusty but perfectly sealed, containing my onboarding training binders with handwritten notes and red-penned reminders. Don't organize for today. Organize for the worst day. They used to laugh at that. Called it paranoid. But the worst day came, and the record spoke when nothing else could. A new email arrived from a sharp DC consulting firm specializing in regulatory infrastructure. They sought someone with deep operational foresight to build documentation systems that actually worked. My name had come up repeatedly. Flexible hours, full team, autonomy, and respect. I replied the next morning, yes. I was open to conversation. I didn't get my old job back. I didn't want it. I didn't need an apology from people who viewed paper as the enemy of progress. I gained something better, a quiet life, a respected name, and the knowledge that I was never just a record clerk. I was the reason there was still a record. In the garden that evening, watching marigolds sway, I wondered how many companies chase the next disruption without realizing the quiet hands preserving their future are the ones they let go first. Progress matters, but stewardship matters more. When the flames hit the wiring, it's the fire extinguisher no one thanked that saves the building. The real question lingers: how many more companies will delete their safeguards before learning that lesson the hard way?